little birdie stitchers, welcome back. We are going to be continuing on. This is part 6 of A Little Birdie Told Me, and here's what you're going to need for today. We're going to work on the crochet and the tatting. So here's a pattern that you can just hit the space bar to stop this video, take your screenshot and print it out that you'll have with you. The outer branches we'll do first, and there are 4 different kinds, so I will go through those. The inner branches we'll be working on. That's sort of a, as you can see by the pattern, there's not really a pattern, it's more of a free form meandering, which you'll be better equipped to do once we do the outer branches. And then I'm going to show you a really simple little tatting. So we're going to start with the outer branches, so grab your dark yarn, which is a sock weight or a 4-ply yarn, something really skinny, and a hook that's right around a 1.75. You can go a little bigger if you want to. There's no gauge here. We're just making branches. So we'll get started with that. Okay, beginning with the smaller dark yarn and the smaller hook, we'll be working the outer branches. I'm going to go ahead and work it in something a little bit bigger just so you can see it. I think it's going to be hard to see the stitches in here. And incidentally, we do have some more pictures from fellow stitchers, and I'll be showing their work at the end of the video so you can view that after the lesson. So to crochet, and again, this is not a beginning crochet lesson. This is assuming that you already know how to crochet. You're going to make a little slip knot and put it at the end of your hook, as always. And so these are for under the center church bell, meaning under the center oya, like right under where that big bright dot is. And we're going to make 4 of them, obviously, because we're going to have 1 for each placement. So it says chain 21, so you'll chain the 21, 1, 2, 3, 21. And then it says work slip stitches, adding pecos and skipping for an inch down the chain. So just right to about here, we're basically just going to go ahead and, maybe skip the first one, work a single. Remember, these are branches, so it's not really a specific pattern you have to follow, which this is the great part about crochet, because it doesn't really matter where you're putting your hook into. So a picot is, you can chain however many. Here we'll do 2, chain 2, and then slip stitch into the first chain. And then just continue down. You can go into the same one. And we want these branches to look a little gnarly, so one of the things you can do too is twist the chain you're working into, right? And then just go into the back of it. And that kind of curls that little branch up, makes it look more authentic. Okay, so once you're an inch down the chain, chain 7, 1, 2, and then you're going to slip stitch down that chain and then just put a picot anywhere you want to. The beginning, in the middle. Remember, you can twist it. Skip a stitch here and there. Make it sort of an organic shape. That's what we're going for. And then a picot again. 1, 2. Go back into the first stitch. And then continuing down that chain 7 until you get back to that first little branch you made, and then it says single crochet, or excuse me, slip stitch down the next 3. And then chain 5 more. I'm going to put something different on the background of this. Hang on 1 second. That might be better, hopefully. Okay, so slip stitch down this branch, this chain 5. And it's okay to skip some if you want to. Remember, just doing a branch here. Down those 5, and then it says slip stitch down to the beginning of the chain. And I do like to leave those 6-inch tails just for joining and continuing on the stitching. And if you want to throw a picot in here, skip a stitch, you sure could. You see, I'm not really being that careful. I'm just sort of, let's twist it a little bit, throwing a stitch in. wherever. All right. Then what I do is I just clip it about 6 inches down, pull it through, and there you have your gnarly little branch. Okay, so that's the first one. That's the one that's called Under the Center Church Bell. And then we're going to make 8 side church bells. So that obviously goes on either side of the center one. And what that looks like is chain 11. And then it just says slip stitch, adding pecos and skipping till halfway down. So just to about right there. Again, no measuring or any of that. Slip stitch, twist it a little bit, maybe skip a stitch. So freeform that it's easy. Don't make it too complicated. Remember, your branches should all look a little different anyway, so you can make different decisions for each one of the 8 that you do. And we'll twist it back around. Maybe throw in one more. Okay, and then it says chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Slip stitch down that chain and throw a picot in there somewhere, I said, if you want to. You don't even have to go back into that. You can just chain 2 and then keep going. We just want little nubs. And then slip stitch down to the last part, to the very last chain, and chain 9. And then just slip stitch down that, down to the last chain, and end it. You can put a picot in there if you want to. Make sure you're remembering to twist your branches. Okay, clip it 6 inches. Pull it through, leave your nice long tails. And then there's your side church bell branches. Okay, then we're going to work the ones for under the tulip. And then that's another chain 21. This one's a little bit longer. We're going to reverse this. So the chain the 21, okay, 21. Work slip stitches, adding picots and skipping for halfway down the chain. So we're just going to go until it measures about half. Okay, so a slip stitch, remember, is just going into the stitch, taking the yarn and pulling it through the stitch and the loop that's on the hook. Let's make a picot here. Let's do a 3-stitch picot this time. 1, 2, 3. Slip stitch back into the first. Continuing down. Remembering to turn your work and throw a stitch into something in the backwards. Chain 11. 1, 2, 11. Slip stitch down halfway with the picot. So you see what I mean? It's just very simple, very fast, very easy. Chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Slip stitch down that branch. Okay, and now it just says to slip stitch down the original branch. It's the original chain. Okay, and you can throw in a picot there if you want to. And then it just says single crochet in the last stitch. So single crochet, the difference is you pull the yarn through and then you yarn over again and pull it through too. And then it says reverse the whole thing from chain 21. So essentially you're just going to make chain 21 almost like it looks like antlers. Just reverse the whole thing. Chain 21. When I say reverse the whole thing, it really just means just start again. You know, chain 21, work the slip stitches. It doesn't mean like mirror image reverse. Just do the same thing on the other side, on the reverse side is all that means. Okay, so slip stitches, adding picots till you're halfway down. Twist in there. It's about halfway. It doesn't have to be perfect. Chain 11. Throw in a little picot at the end. Right, and then you're right back down to where you started, where your original tail is. Then your fill-in branches, make 4 of these. And under the tulips, I don't know if I said make 4 of those too. Chain 15. Slip stitch in your 5, chain 7. Work down, meaning do whatever you want when you're coming on down. Twist it. And you can go into the top loop, the bottom loop, the back loop. This is the most fun way to crochet because it's just, you get this really cool organic shape at the end, and you really didn't have to work that hard and focus too much. It's my favorite kind of work. Okay, there we go. Cut it. And there's your fill-in branches. And you can do any sort of branch. If you need more to fill in, it just depends on how beefy you want your branch ring to be. So keep working on those. You can experiment with different yarns. Make sure you like the color and the width and how big your branches are, how thick they are. Whatever it is that you want to do to your liking, that's what you get to do. So the next thing then is to work the inner branches. And that's that lighter brown, lighter in color, but heavier in weight. I'm using a cotton here. It's a sport weight cotton. And your size B hook, which is a 2.5 millimeter. Not a lot of instruction here. Basically, it just says, you know, you're going to make 4 of these. You're going to fill the circle around the bird. What I did was I cut 5 yards, and I'm just going to meander crochet like I did before until the 5 yards are gone. So, you know, leave your 6-inch tail. And you might, I don't know, start chaining 30. Let's do 30 to start. This is just an example of one. All of mine are different. But of course you could do the same thing if you don't want to think or don't want to, not in the mood to design anything. You could just follow this for 4 times. It's fine. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just going to start slip stitching my way down. Maybe I'll throw another longer branch in here, so I'll go 9. 2, 3. I'm completely making decisions on the fly, just by looking at it and seeing what I want it to look like. I don't even know really what I want it to look like, but you know what I mean. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's just do a slip stitch. Probably won't do any pecos in this one, but I will twist the branch. Gnarl it up a little bit. And I've reached my first little branch, so let's go ahead and slip stitch down this chain a little bit more. Just might even do a chain 2 and go back into that same hole. Twist the branch. And then let's work another big branch going up. Okay, I just did about 18, 19 going up. Slip stitch back down. See what's happening here. So here's where I, just so you can get a little visual, here's where I started. And then I meandered off and worked some branch things. Now I'm on this one. Might do one coming here and then, you know, coming back down on this side, and then we'll do what we did on that one outer branch where we will go back and go the other way. So that's sort of how I'm working. You know, again, we want this to look organic. You know, not everything is the same. The branches as they grow don't decide how they grow, they just sort of grow, like what we're doing here. Okay, so maybe at this point, oh, I've come to maybe 4 stitches before I've reached that. I'll work another branch. 1, 2, maybe we'll go just a short one this time. 7. That got me about 5 slip stitches. And then keep working down the main stem back to those 4 stitches before my first little branch off. Looking back down on my original chain, twisting and skipping and picoing all along the way. In theory, you've got 5 yards 4 times, so each one of these should cover about a 1/4 way around the inner circle, really where the white linen that you stitched your bird on meets the fabric is where we're stitching these branches onto. So there, I'm back at my beginning, and I probably have half the yarn left of that 5 yards, I'm not sure, around that. Let's do a branch here, maybe I'll do 20. Nothing new here, just work your way down until you feel like making a switch. Okay, maybe make another little branch. 4 and 5. Keep working down. Looks like I'm back to sort of the beginning where I started, and I've got, I suppose, 1.5 yards of yarn left, so let's make another big one. Let's go to 25 this time. 25. Maybe work down 10 or so, 10 slip stitches, skipping, chaining, turning, twisting, picoing, you know. I think you guys are getting the hang of it. Getting the idea of an organic branch making, about the easiest thing you could ever crochet. 7, 8, 9, and 10. And let's chain 12. A little bit of yarn left, so we can do another branch right here. Or, you know, you could even go up. Let's see, you can kind of look at your branch too and say, oh, you know, we might need something right here. So let's work up a little bit. Thickens the branch in some places too when you do that. And let's just do a chain 6, 7, 8 maybe, and then work it down, and that should do it for this branch. We'll lay it out and see what it looks like. And then when we go to sew them on, which we'll do here in a little bit, we can sort of shape them and see where we want everything to go. Okay, so for tatting, this is a very basic lesson. The biggest part of tatting that is the most difficult is getting the hang of what your hands are doing. So we're not going to go really advanced here. This is really just to show you how to do this with a shuttle. This is by Boy. They're available at Joann's or whatever the big box store is near you. Usually you can find them there, and they're not that expensive. So the first thing you want to do in a tatting shuttle is the little wheel that will hold the thread. So what I do is I just tie a knot, just an overhand double knot, really tight so it doesn't slip when you wind it. Clip that extra little piece of thread. And then you're going to just wind it up. So just hold it, and not too tight, firm. You don't want it to be really loose, but you don't want it to be so tight that when you pull on it, the thread sinks either. You know, otherwise it'll get stuck. So just wind that up until your thread almost comes to the outer wheels, the edges of the wheel. Shuttle will have, if you get the boy, I like the kind that has a little hook on it just in case you make a mistake. It's really easy to pick a mistake out, so I love the hook. So this is my favorite shuttle. And what you're going to do is just take what you've wound, have your yarn coming over the top and to the left, and then insert it into the shuttle, making sure that the point is still down. Okay, and this is what we're going to be making, just this simple 5-petal little flower. If you don't want to tat, you can certainly crochet this. You can use buttons on thread. When we go to sew them on, we'll talk more about that. You can buy store-bought little tiny flowers and put them on there. So whatever you can find that you want to adorn with. If tatting is not going to be your thing, it's a little hard to get used to tatting. Once you do, it's kind of like crochet. Once you get it, you get it. So the first thing to do is we want to make sure we definitely leave 6-inch tails here because those are actually going to be our stems. So we're going to not only sew in with those, but we're going to use those and make a loop. That will you're just going to hold that loop in under your finger and your thumb. So it's obviously I'm right hand tatting. If you're left-handed, switch this all around so that your dominant hand holds the shuttle. Okay, and you see it's still with the point down. And I'm just holding that there. They're not even crossed over, it doesn't matter. What you're doing is that this ring here is what you're going to be tatting onto. Tatting is making full hitch knots around this string with this shuttle. So you're going to be doing that in the space between your first finger and your middle finger. So you can see I've got tension on my last 3 fingers, and I'll be holding the knots with my thumb and my first finger really tight. I'll be holding the work under there once I work it. So the first thing that you want to do, the first step to tatting, is you've got this in your hand. You're going to bring the tatting shuttle towards you so that your yarn is wrapped around your hand, and the tatting shuttle will go underneath that thread. See, I'm grabbing it on the other side and pulling it back towards the loop that's on your hand. So here's the secret. Here's the big how you tat. You see how the loop is on my right hand? You need to transfer the tension over to your left hand. So what you have to do is drop your fingers, lose the tension on your left hand, and pull your working yarn. Now do you see how the loop is transferred over to the left hand? That's what you want. So when you slide it up, you've got to keep the tension very, very loose in that left hand. That's the first part of the full hitch knot. The second part is a little easier. You don't have to do the winding thing. It's tatting shuttle goes over and then back through that loop. And again, pulling this, you're basically sliding the left, keeping a lot of tension on your right hand, slide the left hand yarn down. And that will give you a full hitch knot, like in hemp tying. If you've ever done macrame, that's kind of what it looks like. You know you've done it right if you can pull the yarn, the front part of your loop, and this. If that slides freely, you've got a perfect half hitch knot on there. If it doesn't, you've got to take it out and start again. And you may have to do this 20 times. I'm not even kidding you. Don't give up because you'll get it. But it takes a little while. It takes everybody I teach a little while. So don't feel bad if you're not getting it right away. Okay, so here we're going to do another one. So to make the second stitch, it's in front, so you can see that I have this loop around my hand. This shuttle is going to go under. See, I lift my finger and just grab it from the other side, and then over through the loop that's on my hand. Now if I don't let go of the tension on my left hand, this loop is still on my working yarn, and that will not give you a proper knot. So what you're doing, remember, is you're losing the tension on your left hand, pulling with your right, and it's almost a snap. You'll be able to feel it. And now the loop is on this side. And so carefully, without losing the tension here, you need more tension here than here, slide that down until it is resting exactly against the first hitch. Hold it really tight in your thumb and your first finger. And then we've got the easier part, the second part of the hitch. No looping or anything. It is just over and under. And when you're under, make sure that this yarn, working yarn, is under the shuttle. So you are pulling it through a loop. Okay, now here I've got the tension on my right hand, which I don't want. So in order to switch that loop over, you see that? It's just I can switch it back and forth just by what yarn, what thread I'm putting the tension on. This is wrong. The loop is on the right side. That's wrong. All you have to do is lower your 3 fingers, okay, and then slide that up. So now you've got 2 half hitches on there. And you can, it's hard to see, I know, with this light. It's terrible. You can count the horizontal or the vertical, the bars that are running parallel to your string. 1, 2. I've done 2. And I can still pull. Check after every knot because it's frustrating if you do like 5 and then you don't know what knot. You've got that on too. Okay, so here we go again. Under. Pulling it through. Transferring the tension. You can almost hear it. Okay, there's another half, and then the second part of that hitch is just lay this thread, tatting shuttle, over that yarn. And then make sure that you're pulling this so that the loop is on the left hand, your working yarn. Okay, so that's 3. 1, 2, 3. I can still pull my thread. Okay, towards you. And then transfer. Slide it down and over. So the pattern says T4. That means tat 4, and that's what we've done. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it says P1. And what that stands for is a pecos. That's that first little flower petal. Let me show you. This first pecos here. And then it'll say P1, T2 4 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. P1, T4. And that's all that we're going to do. So when it says make 24 of these, it sounds like a lot, but really it only takes about 2 hours to make 24 of them once you kind of get the motion of tatting down. So to make a pecos, it's the same motion, right? You're going to come under, then back over through the loop on your right hand, transferring the loop over. The only difference here is that when you slide it down, you're not sliding it all the way. You're creating a little loop there, and that's going to be the pecos. You can't push that all the way down until you do the second half hitch knot. So what I'm going to do is hold that knot so it doesn't flip back over in my thumb and my first finger, work the second half of that tatting knot, right? Now my yarn is switched over. Work that right up against the first one, and then when you slide it down, you have a pecos that's automatically made. So when it says P1, T2, that tatting piece, that knot, that full hitch knot, that's one of the 2. The pecos is really just leaving the space. What we did is not part of the pecos. Meaning, so I'll do another knot, pulling it, making sure that your yarn still moves, and then put this over. This yarn is under, remember, we're making a loop. Okay, and then we got to flip it back over before you bring it down. Okay. So what we have is T4, tat 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The picot, which was just leaving that space, and then T2, 1, 2. So we're going to do another picot here. Under, under, over. Okay, and remember we have to switch our knots. So pull this. Whoops. Leaving a little bit more space. Now if you accidentally go up or you make a knot that you don't like or something's funky, use this little point on there to just move it back down. Or unpick the knot or whatever it is that you have to do. It's really easy. Okay, so I can tell already that's not going to be big enough. Not that we have to try to make them the exact same size. You'll go crazy if you try to do that 24 times. But you want them close, you know. It's a little flower, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, I like that. I think that'll be fine. So to do the second part of that, to lock that in place, you're just coming over and through the loop. Transfer, and then push it up. Never put the first part of your full hitch knot, don't pull that up if you're working a picot until that second hitch is done. Okay. So another full hitch, come towards you. Let's give ourselves a little bit more. Come towards you and wrap that all the way around. Under. I'm not working a picot, so I can pull that all the way up to the work. And then just lay this on top and pull it through the loop right here. Over. Transfer. Okay. So we're going to do another picot. Okay, so that's one of the two tats. Okay. Now we're going to work a picot. There's 4. We'll finish out that little parentheses, that pattern, which says P1, T2. And now the pattern says P1, T4. So all that means is we're going to put our 5th picot in and then tat 4 more, and then we'll close up the ring. And it's this magical little daisy we'll have. Okay, so, and just note too that when you're holding your work, make sure all the hitches are facing the same way. You know, all your picots are on the left-hand side. You know, your vertical, horizontal bars are all lined up, because this thing can get twisted pretty quickly if you let go. And if you notice, as I just do my regular tatting speed, I just, in one motion, I drop and pull. And you'll get to that point too. But for now, while you're getting used to it, just do this and, you know, make a conscious effort to make sure that the tension, the loop goes over to your left-hand side, or your non-dominant, your non-shuttle hand. Okay, that's 3. And 4. Now, all you have to do now to shut that ring, making sure everything is facing the same way still, is just pull the yarn that's attached to your shuttle. Just pull that all the way down, and then you'll get that darling little ring. Cut your tail, and that's it. Okay, so let's start with attaching the outer branches. So this is the one that we did where I called it under the church bell. You know, this is our first one. So just sort of take the tails. This is I think it's a embroidery needle, maybe a ribbon embroidery needle or a tapestry needle. The sharp's a little bit pointier than a normal tapestry needle though, because we do want to pierce this. And just start making sort of branch shapes. You know, decide where you want the first one, where your yarn is. And what I do is I'll just stab it into the background and then maybe come up just 1/4 of an inch down the branch a little bit. It's really Nothing too tricky about this, just trying to get it shaped on so that it looks branchy. And go back down into, just take a stitch somewhere and maybe come up somewhere. It doesn't matter at all, you know, just so that you're piercing that branch again. And maybe this branch is kind of coming over the oil a little bit. And just sort of play with it and decide where you might want that. We'll come up right here. And don't pull too hard. You're not trying to pucker your work. So if you end up where the work is starting to pucker a little bit, just loosen up your stitching, your threads. And it's interesting, it's okay if it comes up over the applique. It takes a little bit to get your needle plugged through there, but it kind of looks neat if the branches are just sort of being branch-like and covering a few of the things that you've done. It's okay. Come back down and then maybe up through here. And then with the rest of the tails, you can sort of make little mini branches with fly stitching or with a feather stitch or something, where this is kind of coming out here. Maybe we'll go through the elbow of this. And that way you can kind of see even a thinner line here. You know, maybe you do a little split stitch or fly stitch. And then just weave these back into either the back, or you can weave them right back into the branch. When you get to the back, again, you can just weave the ends even into the batting if you want to. It doesn't really matter. And that's how you're going to attach all of the branches. So my recommendation would be to do all of that branch first. So go and stitch each one of these branches to where they go, right? And then take the ones that we did the 8 of, and that's under the side church bell, so that's here. Now if they don't quite stretch, you know, in my mind I like the idea of a thorn of branches, so if they don't quite stretch, then we're going to have to do some more fill-ins, and that's okay. Again, I think I'm going to have to do that because this yarn is so much smaller than the first time I did it. And then once you fill in your side ones, then you're going to put the tulip ones in and then do your fill-in branches. And again, just do some more if you have to fill in. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll come back and show you what that looks like, and then we'll pop those inner branches in. Okay, so once you have all of your branches on, it should look something like this. Just one thing I want to mention, don't nail down all of the ends. You know, you kind of want them so that it looks like they're dimensional, you know, they're popping out a little bit. Take some of the yarn ends and work those fly stitches just so you have some extra little texture there. So then the next thing we're going to do is put on the inner branches. And you know, this is, of course, all of this is optional. If you like the way it looks where it's real clean here, you don't have to put these on. I just wanted something a little bit extra. I thought it was stark by the time I got the whole background done. I was feeling like this was a little stark, so that's why I decided to do the inner branches. But honestly, you do you. You make sure you like it the way you want. As far as putting these down, I just start with where one of the yarns is coming out of. Thread the needle, and then just right where the blanket stitch is, just attach it. And then as you stitch it down, just like the outer branches, you'll start to play with where you want them to sit. You know, don't go so much into the white. Maybe a little bit where it just looks sort of branchy, you know, bend them a little. So like right here. And so you just kind of stitch them on. And then take an embroidery floss, what you have left from the bird, maybe something that is close to this branch color, maybe the terracotta, depending on the yarn you have, it might be the milk chocolate. And then work some of those fly stitches in those branches as well for the main part of the branch, and then just moving the branches sort of where you want them to go. So pretty self-explanatory, you know, just play with it. Make sure it looks good and branchy, something like that. And each one of those pieces should cover, like I said, a quarter of the circle, so you should be able to fit all 4 of those so that they're overlapping. Just stretch them out. You know, maybe this one goes up here a little bit, and this one comes here. Whatever you feel. So here's sort of what it'll look like once all the branches are filled in. You can see I took a thread, all 6 strands of a DMC floss. That was close. It wasn't a perfect match. I couldn't find a perfect match in my stash, but it was close enough. A little darker, so it kind of almost looks like shadows. You know, just overlap the branches, leave some of them kind of loose and hanging so that it's textured. And now we're going to put on the little oil pieces. This is actually kind of fun. We're going to do some weaving. So let's start at the bottom. What I've got is I went back to the 2 strands of yarn, thread C. And with that, on this side, this is the outside of the oil pieces. Really won't be able to fit too much in here, but what you're going to do is every 1/4 of an inch apart, make a line that runs perpendicular to the applique that's about 1/8 of an inch wide. So I'm just going straight across and then coming up right against the applique, not in it, just up against it, about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch long. That should do it. 1/4 of an inch apart. If you chose not to do the tatting, right here what you could do is still take some thread and do what we're about to do. We're going to weave this in and out through these stitches. And then at the end of the threads, just put, like we talked about, like a button or a purchased flower or something you crocheted, a bead, a brooch, you know, just something in your stash that, you know, maybe you've been wanting to use up. The other thing you could do is just take some nice little lace trim or some rickrack and stitch it to the side of this just for some extra texture. That would be kind of fun too. So not to worry if tatting wasn't your thing. Just grab a tapestry needle, put both of the thread ends in. And what you're going to do is just weave it under, over, under, over. So we've got an under, over, under, over. It helps too if the needle in this case isn't super sharp. All the way up until that flower rests right at the top of that applique. Okay, so we went over, under. Then when you reach the end of your threads, just pop them down into the back. Okay, so as you probably can guess, we are going to take the second flower and weave it in the opposite way, in the opposite direction. But we're not going to start at the top because we don't want the flowers all bunched together. So I think what we'll do is start right here, maybe a 1/2 inch down, 3/4 of an inch down. And this flower will sit somewhere like this. We can adjust that once we're done with the weaving. Under. I think I just went under the next one. And then again, just work that weaving opposite, and this little flower will sit sort of like this. We can adjust that when we go to sew it. So I like the length of those. I think that looks fine. So what I'm going to do now is just to make sure that they don't move, you know, when I stitch them down, I'm just going to tie little knots. Okay, so rethread your C, your bright color, and then here, just put a stitch in between every picot. And that's good to hold that one in place. So put the flower wherever you want the flower to be. Sort of hold it in place, and then we're going to continue the little green lines every 1/4 of an inch up the stem, just to hold it. And then same with this little guy down here. Same thing. Just sort of make sure that the stem sort of arches in a nice way. Kind of looks more organic. It looks more natural if there's an arch to the stem. There is a right and a wrong side of tatting, by the way, but in these little flowers you can't really tell. This might be the back side, but it kind of looks better laying flat like that. Okay, and then again, 1 stitch, and that's it. Okay, so work those all the way around, or whatever it is that you want to do. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. You guys are so creative. You come up with things I would have never thought of, so keep sharing those. When you are finished with this week, your piece will look like this. I want to thank you again for stitching along with me and keeping up and sharing your photos, and I'll leave you with a few photos that have come through this week, and I can't wait till next week, week 7, where we're going to do those corner tulip reverse applique. Take care, and we'll see you next week.